Good morning, everybody. Welcome back. Thursday, almost there. We can do this. Today we're talking about a top 3 saint, in my opinion, in my personal opinion. She's up there with the GOATs. You probably have never heard of her, and she's done more for Western civilization than like half of the people you read in a textbook. So today we're talking about St. Catherine of Siena. So Siena is a small town in Italy. Its main rival was Florence at the time. Siena was born in the early 1300s. She lived through the plague. She lived through 2 popes, and she has an absolutely crazy story. So she's born the son of a dyer. So a dyer back in the day, he would dye clothes for people. That was kind of his job. So kind of like middle class. But she was illiterate. She couldn't read. And, she's getting to that age. And her dad's like, yo, I'm selling you off. Like, you're going to go get married to a man. The normal thing. And Catherine decides, nah, I'm good. She shaves off all of her hair, kind of like me. And she says, my heart is already taken to the Lord Jesus Christ. And from then on out, she did amazing things. She convinced the Pope at the time, Pope Gregory. The church was in France because of, middle-aged church politics. And she convinced him to move it back to Rome. She called for a crusade. All the crusading boys. She called for a crusade. She wanted to go crusading. She would wear a metal chastity belt, down there. Her entire life. She wore it her entire life. She only took it off to bathe and to clean it. And she would say in her journals that the devil would come to her with these crazy, crazy visions of men and women doing, the deed in her visions and stuff. But she never, ever, ever, ever gave into it. She stayed a virgin her entire life. In her mind, she was married to Jesus. And I bring her up because, this is all great stuff and all, but how is she so influential, Liam? How did she influence the world that I live in today? Well, after Pope Gregory dies, he moves it to Rome. There's this whole civil war. Siena backs the Roman-based Pope, Pope Urban VI. And Pope Urban VI absolutely loved Catherine. He even let her come to Rome and to have sermons in front of the priests. She would teach the priests. That's how based Catherine was. And, her ability of showing everyone what it is like to be married to Christ and to not give in to temptation and to show what we're called to do with monogamy was so beautiful. It moved Pope Urban VI so much that he made a decree that, so at the time, a woman had to submit to her man, right? She couldn't go around with other dudes. She could only be with her husband. But the husband, he had to make no such pledge. He could divorce her. She couldn't divorce him. He could divorce her. He could force himself upon anyone. Most of the time, it was nobles forcing themselves upon their servants. And there was no one saw it as a bad thing. It was totally normal. And also, people like Catherine would be married into different families for political or business gains and stuff like that. And Pope Urban was so moved by Catherine when she died in 1380 that he decreed that no man is allowed to have more than just his wife. He has to also make a commitment to her for the rest of his life if they're married through Jesus Christ. And it also did something which was even crazier and something that no other civilization or group of people have ever done in history. And that's marrying based on mutual attraction. So priests would marry 2 young lovers without their parents' consent. One could be a noble, one could be a poor person. It would not matter. Catherine set the example of you can marry who you want. You don't have to listen to your parents. and marry. You can shave your head and say, nah, I'm already taken. And it completely changed the dynamics of Western civilization. So we went from a clan structure where most of the time you'd be marrying your third or fourth cousin, keeping it within the family name, to now you can marry whoever you want. You could be with whoever you want. And you two were committed to each other for life. And that changed the entire family structure of Western civilization. We became a monogamous society. We were not a clan society anymore. And that is one of the most profound things that has ever happened in human history. I personally believe it's one of the main things that led to the Industrial Revolution, the exploration of the New World, the world that we live in today, electricity. Everything that you do, this phone that I'm talking on, stems from Catherine being such an example and not being afraid about how she felt about the Lord, that it inspired others to do things to change the world in the way that she lived. And that's just absolutely beautiful. Like, because of Catherine of Siena, all of us have a mom and a dad and our brothers and sisters, and they stay together. And that is our family structure. Nowhere else in the world does that. You can look it up. Nowhere else in the world does that. Only Christian societies do that. Everyone else thought it was weird. The Muslims would make fun of the Christians. The Asians were like, who are these people on the opposite side of the world? They're weird. But, you know, Catherine, even though she never got to see the fruits of her labor, look at what she has done for this world. And, I just want you guys to know that, like, even if you think what you're doing has no effect on anybody or anyone or anything, and you may never even get to see the fruits of your labor in this lifetime, what you do can change and impact the world in so many ways and so far into the future that you couldn't even imagine it, right? By following God and doing what He wills of you, you can change the world. It may not be in your time, but it may be way into the future. So shout out to Catherine, St. Catherine of Siena. She's wonderful. I want to read you guys a verse, and then I have a prayer for all of you that I want you guys to have. Because my dad, anytime we went to school, football or anything like that, he would say this prayer. And as a kid, I didn't really understand it. But now as I'm getting older, it's definitely hitting me harder. And I'm definitely understanding it and using it a lot more. So the verse of the day is Romans chapter 1, verse 16. Let me see here. For I am not ashamed of the gospel, for it is the power of God for salvation to everyone who believes, to the Jew first and also to the Greek. For in it, the righteousness of God is revealed from faith for faith, as it is written, the righteous shall live by faith. And then the prayer is, once I was walking along the beach with the Lord. Across the sky flashed scenes of my life. For each scene, I noticed two sets of footprints in the sand, one belonging to me and the other to the Lord. I also noticed at the very lowest and saddest times of my life, there was only one set of footprints. So I said to the Lord, Lord, you said once I decided to follow you, you'd walk with me all the way. Why, when I look back at the sand at the very lowest and saddest times of my life, do I see only one set of footprints? The Lord replied, my precious, precious child, I love you and I would never leave you. During your times of trial and suffering, when you see only one set of footprints, it was then that I carried you. And then it follows into, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. I hope you guys have a wonderful Thursday. Give somebody a hug, hold the door for somebody, do great things, do it for the Lord. I will see all of you tomorrow. Have a great day.